had to go put the sport coat on. We getting ready to do business with God. Amen. Why are you here? Why are you here? Worship Jesus. Why do we make such a big deal about this? Why do we make a big deal about gathering together and having this unbelievable campus? Right? I'll tell you again that we probably have if I think about all the churches in Gaston County, and just so you know, there's one about every square mile, okay? If I told you that Hickory Grove Baptist Church, right, as I've told people this week, as I've been out and about, the OG, all right, the original, not Charlotte, the original. Right, we have a top 5 campus. I would take this campus over almost any in Gaston County. Do you understand that? Do you realize that? That God has blessed us in a way that is just crazy. Right? So why are we here? What's our focus? Specifically, 2 questions for you today is one, what is your focus individually as a believer? What is your focus individually? As a believer, as a follower of Christ, what is your focus? And then, right, we have to ask the question, then what is our focus as a church? What is our focus? What are we called to be? Who are we called to be? I'm going to turn to Nehemiah today. Nehemiah is one of my favorite individuals in the Bible. Specifically, we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6. And just let me give you kind of an overview of where we are in Nehemiah. It goes back to about 586 BC. That's when the Babylonian Empire under King Nebuchadnezzar, that of Daniel's story, conquered Jerusalem. Right? They conquered them, and the city of Jerusalem, the temple in Jerusalem were destroyed. Many Jews were taken into exile into Babylon. We often call this event the Babylonian captivity. It was a significant event in the life of Israel, all driven by the disobedience, once again, of the Jews. And the king then required the Jews to live in Babylon. But then 539 BC, the Persian Empire under a gentleman called Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon. And this king, Cyrus, issued a decree that allowed the exiled Jews that were taken into Babylonian captivity, right, to return back to their homeland and to rebuild their city. And this is why Nehemiah and his friends and people were given the opportunity to return to Jerusalem and what they would eventually rebuild the walls. Understand, these were laymen. These were not necessarily priests, not a prophet, but they were given the opportunity to return home to Jerusalem. And this gentleman named Nehemiah had favor, and he served as a cupbearer to the Persian king Artaxerxes. And to serve as a cupbearer, it held weight. You were trusted, right? You were trusted in the palace. You were a trusted person in that time. Right? But in that process, Nehemiah learns that Jerusalem's walls are in ruin. Right? And he prays. He begins to pray earnestly, right, for guidance and ultimately for favor. And the king grants Nehemiah permission to return to Jerusalem to build the walls. So what happens? Nehemiah secretly kind of inspects the walls at night. He rallies the Jewish leaders and people to begin to rebuild the walls, right? And then there was some opposition that would come from the Samaritans, and they threatened attack. But ultimately, God helps Nehemiah, and the people rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, this great city, in 52 days. Despite opposition, right, from even local people, right, they begin to work in earnest, right, to rebuild the walls, right, families and groups repairing specific, it's one of my favorite parts of this story, right, these families and these people, this community come and they rebuild specific parts of the wall. External enemies look to attack, and they mock and they threaten, but Nehemiah in his leadership organizes armed guards. He encourages perseverance, and the people work with tools, right, in one hand and weapons in the other to fight off the enemies. They were determined, despite fear, despite opposition. Nehemiah in that time would address social injustices among the Jews. Right? He would take on these things. Wealthy individuals of the time that were exploiting the poor through loans and interest, right? He starts to rebuke all of the nobles. He restores fairness. He sets an example, right, by refusing personal gain from the position. All of this, and this sets the direction and the tone for where we're going to pick up for our story today in Nehemiah chapter 6. Nehemiah chapter 6. I'm going to start in verse 1. Verse 1. And it says this, that when word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies, that I had rebuilt High, being Nehemiah, had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left in it, though up to that time I had not set the doors in the gates. Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messengers to them with this reply, I am carrying on a great project and I cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? And 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. And then the 5th time, Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter in which was written, it is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it is true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you are building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you are about to become their king and have even appointed prophets to make this proclamation about you in Jerusalem. There is a king in Judah. Now this report will get back to the king, so come, let us meet together. I sent them this reply, nothing like what you are saying is happening. You're just making it up out of your head. They were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. Let's go back to verse 2 there. It says, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message, come, let us meet together in one of the villages on the plain of Ono. But they were scheming to harm me. See, they sent a letter to Nehemiah, so someone comes in and rattles Nehemiah's ladder as he's up on the wall. He says, listen, there's this anonymous letter, right, that's been sent to you, okay? We love anonymous letters in the church, let me tell you, okay? Right, but Nehemiah, there's some people there, they want to meet you. They want to meet with you, right? They say, let's meet together at the village on the plain of Ono. The plain of Ono was, you see, a distraction. It's a distraction for Nehemiah, his focus or his purpose. Right? I want to challenge us to say no to those Onos in our lives. Right? We all have those distractions, right? And let me ask you this. Are there distractions in your life taking away from your focus and purpose? Right? Are there things in your life that are taking away, right, from your focus, what your purpose is? There's a lot of plain of oh no's that are coming your way. I hope you understand that for some of your families, for some of your finances, for some of your commitments, there's a plane of oh no wanting to come in and totally deter your focus for the mission that God has for you, for the purpose that God has for you. There's some things, and you know what they are. You know what they are. Right there, maybe it's a bottle. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's not even necessarily a bad thing. But it takes away your focus. Right? It doesn't have to be a bad thing to take away your focus from what God has intended for you, the purpose, the mission in your life. Right? There's a lot of those things. Right? There's things that are trying to distract you. So I challenge you to say no to the oh-nos. Say no to the oh-nos in your life. Nehemiah knew this was a distraction. He knew they had a reason to meet with him. They weren't trying to have coffee. Right? It wasn't like that. You know, it was, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go to the plain of Ono. Let's go play some golf. Let's get to know each other. No, they wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. They wanted, right, to do away with this work that he was being given. Nehemiah knew this was a distraction. He knew they had no reason to meet him. They weren't trying to have coffee. Right? There are things that are out there that are distracting you. Right? That given the opportunity to move forward with those things, they may not kill you. They may not hurt you. But they may kill your marriage. They may not ruin your life. They may ruin your health. Right? There's something that's trying to distract you from your focus, from your purpose. Right? If there was a magic button to finish some of the things you need to finish or change some of the things that you need to change, guess what? You would have finished them a long time ago. There's not magic. Right? There's no magic button to finish those things that God has put in front of us. But we've got to stay on the wall. Right? We can't come off of the wall. We've got to stay up on our ladder. Right? We've got to complete the mission that God has for us. Right? Nehemiah says, I'm not letting this distract me from focusing on the main thing. Right? So they kept coming to him. They kept coming. They over and over. And this is a scripture I want to highlight here in verse 3. So I sent messengers to them with this reply. And this same reply can go for us today. I am carrying on a great project, and I cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? I'm carrying on a great project, and I cannot go down. What is that thing that God's called you to focus on? What is your wall this morning? Right? Because you see, our focus, the focus on what God has for us, the focus for the mission at hand is a weapon. Do you understand that? That our focus is a weapon, that the enemy knows that if he can deter us, if he can take our focus away on something, right, that is not God's purpose, he's got us. He's got us. Right? You have a focus. You have a mission. Right? I think that's me, Brad. I'm sorry. I'll try it. He's got a focus for us. Right? He's got a mission. And he's got a mission for this place. He's got a purpose for Hickory Grove Baptist Church. Right? And I must stand here before you, right, in a pimped out jacket and all, right, telling you and believing with everything that is in me that it's a clear vision. How can you say that, Chris? I can't defy all of the crazy doors that God has opened in the past 4 years. Right? If you believe that 4 years ago I came in here and we had we had a 12-point plan, and we knew that, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this is how it's going to go, and that's going to happen, and that's getting paid off, and that door's going to open, and this. You're crazy. Right? God has blown my mind over the past 4 years of how he's allowed this place, right, to come to life and to engage with this community and understand and make life-altering changes in people's lives. Right? That I pray that excites you. Right? I pray, right, that you wake up every day saying, hey, how can we do more? How can I do more? How can I walk in the purpose and the plan that God has for me? Right? It's a weapon, and it can be used for good or evil. If you study the historical leaders and stories in the Bible, nothing was done without someone who lived with extreme focus. Right? For good and evil. Hitler started with a simple focus to spread fascism across Germany. And then from Germany to Austria, and Austria to Poland, and then across Eastern Europe. Right? It was a focus. And that focus was a weapon for evil. But in the same way, focus can become a weapon for good. Jesus had a focus. I must be about my Father's business. I don't care what religious people say. I don't care what the Pharisees say. Nail me to the cross, but I am staying focused on this mission. He even asked his Father, hey, if it would be your will to have this cup pass from me. He stayed on mission. He's after me today. Jeez. What's your mission? What is the mission you need to be focused on? Right? What's the one thing that if you were to not do that one thing, what is that? Right? That you'd be walking in the plan that God has for you. Maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe it's a relational thing. Maybe it's a habit that you need to break. Maybe it's a habit, internet addiction. It's affecting everything, right? You're not the same when you're going back to that bad habit. Maybe it's something negative. Maybe it's something positive. Maybe it's a goal that you feel like you need to accomplish. Maybe it's a priority that's out of sequence. There's one thing Nehemiah knew what the goal was. And it was to rebuild Jerusalem. It was to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. Hickory Grove, we have a goal. It is biblical and it is a mandate. And it's simply this, that we are to reach this community with the gospel hope of Jesus Christ. This was his goal. Right? And listen, a lot of us, we have too many goals. We have too many goals, right? And it's hard to focus and accomplish all 10 because we're trying to focus on all 10. Right? When you can only really focus on one. All can relate that there's distractions on your life on a daily basis. I'll say it's not just daily. Maybe for some of us it's hourly. Every single hour that you're awake, there's a distraction going on in your head. You carry it around with you most of the day. Right? Right? There's total distractions. What if we looked at that and what if we understood that? Right? That it takes away from your mission. Right? There's been some distractions that have tried to pull you off focus. Parents, let me get in your grill just for a second. Okay? Okay. Yeah, the devil may be just telling me to take my jacket off. All right, there. Could have said that from the beginning. Parents, let me talk to you for a second, okay? Because I say this, and this is stuff that I've learned, okay? Sometimes our kids can be distractions. Right? And you like, be careful, preacher. Really? Right? Because listen, both of my kids have been home for the past 4 weeks. and my house is messy again. And I hate it. And it unnerves me. You don't know, right? But they become distractions, right? Because what they really need, understand me, right? What they really need, right, is a gospel-centered mama and daddy, okay? Right? And if they get a gospel-centered mom and daddy, then out of that overflows every parenting hack that you need, everything that you have, right? So they can't become a distraction, right? We have distractions all the time, right? With our phones and everything, listen, I'm going to get back to my phone, right, this after sermon, and I'm going to have all these notifications. Okay, all these notifications, right? Trying to get my attention and try to take my focus away. Right, but I want you to understand, I want us to be like Nehemiah, like says, God, I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. I'm doing a great work. Somebody, right, you need to look at your kids tonight when you're tucking them in bed. You need to kiss them, right, because they're still in your house. Right, maybe they don't want you to kiss them. Right, maybe it's an awkward hug or whatever. If they walk out of the room, right, just walk by their bedroom tonight and say, I'm doing a great work. I cannot come down. Right? When it gets hard, when things start to pull away from you, understand, parent, you're doing a great work. You cannot come down. What is it that you need to think about right now, that you need to focus on? What is your wall? Nehemiah knew. He knew what his wall was. He knew what he was supposed to focus on, but the distractions kept coming. Verse 4, it says, 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. After he had already given them his response, it says they came back 4 times. 4 times. And they kept saying, please come down. Nehemiah, please come down. It's important. It's urgent. Right? We need you. It's an emergency. And I answered them in the same way, saying, I'm doing a great work. I cannot come down. What's that thing you need to focus on? What is that thing, Hickory Grove, that we've got to focus on? You may say, hey, what's it going to do if I focus on it? How important is this? I'm telling you, it's a matter of life and death. It's a matter of life and death. I'm telling you, it's a matter of heaven and hell. I'm telling you, it's a matter of your marriage staying intact or it falling apart for some of you. I'm telling you that for some of you in this room, you have a purpose. We all do. A dream from God. If you can't do it, God's going to find somebody else, some other way to make it happen. But God has put it in your heart, and you've got to focus one at a time. Everybody ever heard of In-N-Out? In-N-Out Burger? Yeah? Been out to the West Coast, you've definitely known In-N-Out Burger. It's probably the most popular fast food restaurant, and I think they're actually starting to make their way to the East Coast. But with In-N-Out, there's 3 things on their menu. That's it. There's 3 things on their menu. Number 1, a double fries and drink. Number 2, a cheeseburger, fries and drink. Number 3, a hamburger, fries and drink. Nothing else on the menu except chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry shakes. That's it. That's it. A Christian couple started In-N-Out. If you look at the bottom of their cups, you'll see scriptures. But it became just this hugely popular restaurant, right? And I can imagine some of their friends coming or some of their coworkers saying, hey, come on, let's add some fish tacos to the menu. How about a chicken biscuit? Right, we all love chicken biscuits, right? How about that? No, we're focused on what we do best. We're focused on these 3 things. This is what happens in our lives, right? When we start trying to add so many things to our calendar and so many things, some of us need to stop praying about what to add to our lives and start praying about what we need to cut out of our lives. Stop praying what to add. Start praying for maybe what to take away. It's stealing focus from the main thing that you need to be focused on. Let me bring it to the East Coast, Chick-fil-A. All right, Christian chicken. All right, one of the things they're focused on? What is something that they have been profound on? It's a non-negotiable. Sunday. That they will stay closed on Sunday. Listen, I do a lot for $2 billion. I would. You'd do a lot for $2 billion. In 2024, their estimated sales were $22 billion. Chick-fil-A. It's estimated that they lost $2 to $3 billion by not being open on Sundays. It's a picture of me that when we start focusing on the right things, God starts blessing other things. Right? That He starts blessing your marriage. He starts blessing your family. He starts blessing your finances. What are we going to focus on, right? And listen, I don't say that in some name it and claim it, all right? That's garbage, okay? I say that I believe, right, as we start to live a gospel-centered life, why wouldn't a good God bless that? He'll start to do that. Right? Guess what? When I got married to Shannon, I had to say no to my buddies. So I could say yes to Shannon. Right? Not to something good, but to say yes to something great. When I had kids, I had to say no to some hobbies, to say yes with time with my children. I got to focus on really what really mattered. You do too. Hickory Grove has to focus on what really matters. If you've got to say no to some things that might be good things, there's a difference between good things and God things. Okay? You understand that? There is a difference between good things and God things. Good ideas and God ideas. Right? How many ministries, how many businesses got excited over a good idea? Going after all these good ideas, and they lost focus on the God idea. Right? We should do that. We should hire them. We should spend that money there. We get a mile wide and an inch deep. I wonder if in your life you're a mile wide and an inch deep with God. Vision, I just have this idea that, and to me it's important, we have a vision of doing a few great things instead of a lot of things that are mediocre. All right, let me go in a little bit. I believe that we're being led to two areas, okay? Two areas in our community that I have felt just an overwhelming nudge from God. One is the local schools. It's the local schools, okay? I was astounded. I really, as over the past few years, as we've gotten able to partner with the local schools, I've been really disappointed in the gospel church. There's been a couple of times to where I've reached out and engaged and go in and when I look around, I was there the first day of school at East Gaston, walking the hallways and looking and Doc Huffstetler is just not, it's me being naive, and I've been shaming myself ever since. Right, to look around and us, I'm sitting there as a pastor of a church, right, and I'm looking and I'm looking at this body of kids, right, and I'm watching them and I'm seeing I'm seeing certain things that I definitely don't agree with, and that all these lifestyles and everything. And I became overwhelmed with emotion, right? To where, right, I know we talk about the separation of church and state. I can't read it in the Bible, but whatever, okay? But understand me on this, and this is the heart of what I want you to understand today, is that I don't have to lead, okay? I don't have to lead saying, hey, turn or burn, right? That's not going to get us nowhere, right? But what I can lead with is forming relationships, right? With a 50-year-old chubby pastor, right? And we start to form relationships, and then I start getting texts, just random texts during the week from kids, right? That they know, hey, right? I think I can trust them. I keep seeing Hickory Grove an awful lot. I think we can trust them, and it's all built on relationships, right? We're called to the schools. We will continue, right, to go knee deep at East Gaston. Understand, 800 kids roughly, right? 900 kids, 1,000 kids. All right, 950, okay? Almost 1,000 kids. Times 2 equals 3,000 if they have a parent, right? Siblings. In one stop, church, listen. We have the opportunity to touch over 3,000 people. Let's go down the road. Right? We need to expand that this year. Right? We need to expand that. We need to go deeper into Stanley Middle. We've made some touches. Right? But we need to go deeper. Right? We need to go deeper with Mount Holly Middle. Right? We've had the opportunity to do a couple of things with them. Right? There's so much more that we can do. We need to go deeper with North Belmont Elementary. We need to go deeper with Catawba Heights Elementary. Right? With Kaiser Elementary, with Pinewood Elementary. All of these are our people. These are our kids. Right? And we have an opportunity to meet them. God's opened stupid, crazy doors, right? That it's made it easy for us to go and partner and make connections with them. Right? There's all these kids, there's all these opportunities. So I feel led that we've got to continue in the school system. Number 2, and this is new. We've got to go out. I believe a local church, has to look like their community. Okay? We've got to look like our community. And guess what, church? Guess what, Hickory Grove? Our community does not look like the 99.9% white people that we have in here. Right? I have been praying hard that God opens some doors to our Hispanic and Latino community. Right? And he has. I've gotten calls from 2 pastors that I'll be meeting with over in the coming weeks just to understand what that looks like. You know, but I look at this, and this is what I'm talking about as we leverage, right, everything that God's done for us and been so good to us. How can we leverage that further? You know, how can we? There's a Latino church they're building one right down on Hickory Grove Road. Okay, there's another one that's leasing a building just off of Woodlawn. Right, there's 2 or 3 within Rocks Throw here. Right, that they're paying lease, they're doing all this stuff. How can we partner with them? Right, how can we make it, right, leveraging some of our resources and our things to better reach this Hispanic community? Because guess what? If they don't hear the name of Jesus, they're going to hell too. Right, so how can we do that? Right, I don't know what it looks like. I don't have the answer for any of that, right? But I am praying diligently that God will open those doors. Right, to get into the schools, right, to understand what is needed in this Latino community. What do we need to focus on? Right, Nehemiah 6:5-7 says this: Then the 5th time Sanballat sent his aide to me with the same message, and in his hand was an unsealed letter in which was written, "It is reported among the nations, and Geshem says it's true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt. You're planning to revolt, and therefore you're building the wall. Moreover, according to these reports, you're about to become their king." Man, they start spreading rumors. about Nehemiah. Man, he got thrown on Mount Holly Town Talk, Stanley Town Talk. I've been there. It ain't a good place. Right? They read it. The whole right rumor has it. Nehemiah trying to build his own thing. He doesn't care about you. He just cares about himself. He's building up his own empire. He's going to name himself king. Man, don't you just love it when people know your motives? But Nehemiah wasn't distracted. He didn't come down from his ladder, right? He did not come down from his ladder and write something on Facebook or Instagram, okay? He didn't do that. He just kept work. He kept doing the work time and time again. He just kind of shook his head. He said, some people just can't stand my progress, but I'm going. Right, after they tried to slander me, right, make slanderous accusations. They tried to pull me down from my mission. But what did he do? What did Nehemiah do? Something I challenge you with in verse 9. It says, they were all trying to frighten us, thinking their hands will get too weak for the work and it will not be completed. What are those next three words? But I prayed. But I prayed. Strengthen my hands, God. But I prayed. Oh Lord, strengthen my feeble hands. Strengthen my focus. Strengthen my hands, God. What are you praying for? What are you praying for? Are you even praying? Are you praying for God to move in your life? Are you praying for God to make changes in your heart, in your marriage, in your health, in your finances, right? That relationship with your family, that addiction that you know you need to break. Right? Not just through asking God to do it all by himself, but you taking a partnership and saying, I'm going to make some practical changes in my life. I'm going to get rid of those things. I'm going to empty out some of the things. I'm going to throw away some of the things that I need to. Why? So I can be the best me that God has called me to be. So I can be the best me to go out and be the husband, the father, the person in the community, the church in the community that I need to be. Hickory Grove, what's our prayer? What's our prayer? Right? We like the easy prayers. Right? I'm praying big prayers. I'm praying big prayers. I challenge you to pray big prayers, right? And let's be honest, the reason we don't pray big prayers is because they make us nervous. They make us nervous. Man, what if God actually answers that prayer? Then what? Well, you got to go to work. You got to go to work. You got to do. You know what the difference that I want Hickory Grove to be than the other churches? I want us to go do it. I want us to do it. I want us to put boots on the ground. I want us to put work out there in the schools. I'm telling you, right? It's an open door. We can walk in. They want our help. They're pleading for our help. Those kids need our help. You don't have to go in there and lead some Sunday school lesson. No, you need to go in there and love on a kid. Love on a teacher, right, who feels that's at the end of her rope. Right, that she doesn't know what she's going to do, why is she even here, what difference is she making? Right, we can love on them. I can walk beside a guidance counselor on loving a kid. I can do that. What is it? We've got to put boots on the ground. Listen, I'm not even getting close to finish this sermon. Just last week, 2 weeks ago, get a call about a kid in the community. Right? Many of you know this kid. His mother is a teacher at Stanley Middle. Right? This summed it up for me. Get a call, a fire had broke out at Brentwood Chase there in Lowell. Right, his family was there, and he got displaced, and he had to go to. They had to go to another place, apartment complex in Belmont. And I hear about this, and it's, this kid is, you can't know him and not love him, and he gets displaced, right? And I get a call in between, Doc Hufstetler and a couple others in the community. man, they just start going to work for this family, right? And I'm like, well, we got to be about that. So after Sunday afternoon, they get moved. A lot of the school kind of helped them out on a Saturday all day, trying to figure out what they need and meeting those needs. And I go by there Sunday afternoon. I'm in the middle of this living room, and there's boxes and there's chaos all around. Their life just got turned upside down. I'm sitting there with the mother and the student and his sister, okay? I'm standing there and talking to the mother, and the mother begins to talk to her son, her 18-year-old son, right? And just really preaching at him, okay? And I'm loving it, and I'm sitting there. Before I know it, I'm a mess. I'm a hot mess, all right? I can cry. I do cry. Right? I'm sitting there, and I'm just sitting in the middle of this living room with this family that's one of ours. And by the way, we baptized this kid Warrior Sunday, okay? And ever since then, I'll get a text from him every couple of weeks, right, saying, pray for me, Pastor. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm trying to do the best I can, right? And I'm sitting there in their living room, and it's chaos. And I said, well, listen, come on. We got to go. We're going to go grocery shopping. Let's go to Walmart. We got to get you everything you need that, right? So for the next probably 2 hours, I'm in the Walmart, and Shannon Shepard will tell you there's not a lot of things I hate worse than Walmart, okay? And God says, watch this. And I'm in there for those and shopping and getting everything that they need, right, to eat for the week, and some furniture and stuff that they need. I get home, I get a text from this kid. Nate, I don't even know if you know this. I get a text from this kid saying, right before I was going to bed, and he said, Pastor, I can't thank you enough. 18-year-old kid. I don't know what you were doing at 18-year-old, but I wasn't sending a pastor a text like this. He says, Pastor, just know, one of these days, I'm going to pay it all back to you. He says, I don't know if I got to get NIL money or whatever. He said, but I'm going to pay it back. All right, and I told the kid, I'm like, listen, that's not what this is about. You don't pay me back, you pay it forward. Right? We took that kid shopping, and here's what I want you to know, all right? That family life, there's a lot of people, right, that won't say a lot of good things about the church, all right? But we were able to make a difference in that family, okay? Right? But we can't be scared to go out, right? Those connections are made through what we're able to do in the schools and in this community, okay? Right? And I just want to encourage you, right? This says that, hey, we're making a difference, okay? You're making a difference, right? And I know there's some people out there, and listen, I had to get over this, right? To say, hey, well, we got to do this with money. It does matter, okay? It does matter. Right? I don't want to minimize that. It does matter. It allows us to go and update some things at East Gaston High School. It allows us to do some things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. But I want you to understand, right, that it's all for a kingdom impact. Right? And we baptized about 10 kids on Warrior Sunday. There's more kids that we've got to go get. Right? There's a Latino and Hispanic community that we've got to go and get. Why? Because we're the church, and that's what we're supposed to do. Listen, it's important for me that we do things in order, and we're working on all of that behind the scenes, right? We've got to build up discipleship, right? That's a big burden that I have going into this year. We've got to do more things with that, right? Victor's coming on board, right? You're going to see a lot of stuff happening within our students and our kids. We're pouring into our kids. We'll forever do that, right? And that's awesome, right? But what we're doing all of that for ultimately is to go out and reach this community in Jesus' name, okay? right? So listen, I think I told you last week, right? We went to get the van inspected, and they said, hey, we're not charging you, right? Hey, we understand, we see what you're doing, okay? And hey, and this isn't for Hickory Grove's right name to be on the forefront and all of that, right? Please never let it be about that, right? It's all for the name of Jesus. Every bit of it. Right? We are not going in there and painting at East Gaston or painting at Stanley Middle, right? Just so Hickory Grove will put a banner of Hickory Grove in their sponsorship. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it because there's 10 kids that we need to baptize next year in this baptistry pool. That's why, right? And there's people out here in this community. I told Rebecca, I'm like, Rebecca, I've been so encouraged by your staff over the past 2 weeks, right? Like they're making the church look bad and much how they're loving and they're doing all of this stuff with these kids, right? I'm just asking us to be who God has called us to be. I want you to stand.